friends. This is your host, Sasha Clark, and I am so happy to be here with you this morning to talk about the Ajna Center. The Ajna Center is the upside down triangle that is at the upper third of the body graph, so just under the head center. It's usually colored in green, and this Ajna Center is the place where all of our ideas and inspirations turn into concepts and plans. Now, I want to caution my listeners, you're going to think as I'm talking about this Ajna Center, that I'm actually giving you permission to use your mind to make decisions or to coach your kids to use their mind to make decisions. And I am absolutely not saying that. In fact, for all of my new listeners, welcome to the show. I am sometime today going to be posting on my website a beginner teaching from Ra himself. It was the anniversary of his birthday yesterday, and so Jovian Archive sent out a free, repurposed video from 20 years ago when he was first teaching. When he was not first teaching, but had been teaching already a long time human design, but teaching a room full of newcomers about it. And so I really want you to listen to what he says. Some people have a hard time listening to Ra, but he does a really good job in this video or this audio of breaking down all the different dimensions of human design, and it would be a great place to start your knowledge journey. I certainly encourage you and invite you to go back to some of my earlier podcasts from the show too, and start from the beginning. Start with the head center. They're published in the order that they're published because it follows the creative process, and I won't take too much time talking about that today, but we often misunderstand the creative process as an inspiration in the head center, then it comes through the ajna, we make a plan, then we start speaking about it through our throat, and then we push it into existence with our will center or with the sacral energy. And that is absolutely not the way we are designed to be creative in this world. It's actually a partnership that we have with the universe where we get the inspiration, the ideas, and then we're supposed to put it back out into the aura field, back into the outer realm, and wait for the universe to bring something to us. And every single human design type is waiting for something, even the manifestors. But again, I don't want to take too much time teaching about that today. We have a lot to cover with the Ajna Center. So let me start with a quick story first about the not self, the opposite of the ajna, the opposite of the true energy of the ajna, if you want to have it. Anyway, human design refers to the not self, but these are just habits we use. Our mind builds structures to compensate for the inconsistent energy in an undefined center. Or you could call it conditioning, or you could call it, influence from other people that do have an Ajna Center. But I like to call it, I like to think of it in terms of the ego is kind of this wealthy rich guy that's sitting in the back of our limo, but he's trying to be the driver, So he's trying to climb over the seat through that little tiny window and be the driver. And since he can't drive, he can't get through the window, he's barking our ego is always constantly barking orders at us, or judging our lives as if it's wrong, or judging other people's lives as if it's wrong. Especially if we have worthiness issues, we may be judging other people as if they're making us feel less than. So the voice of the ego through the Ajna Center often sounds like being uncertain. And for people with an undefined Ajna, so let's just talk about the 51% of the world has got a defined ajna, and 49% of the world has an undefined ajna. So if you have a defined ajna, you have a consistent way of thinking and processing and conceptualizing information. If you have an undefined ajna, you have this energy is a little more like a sponge, and so you're taking in information and plans and thoughts and ideas from around you all the time, and then it's also got an inconsistent way of logicking or conceptualizing through those ideas. And so what we often experience with people with an undefined ajna is that they will randomly get attached to an idea that has little to no basis in facts or supported data, but they will get committed to it. And when I say committed to it, I mean like if you if you counter their idea, they kind of defend it like a best friend. And this is just a product of the open ajna. And the reason that this struggle is there is because people with an open ajna are honestly never 100% certain about anything. If you really, so here's my cute story. The other day, it's not about my middle child for once. It's about my oldest son, because I talk about my middle child all the time. But this story is about my oldest son, and he had to go take a math test the other day, and he has a lot of logic circuitry in his body graph, so he's really good with math, really good with sciences, really good with logical information. He doesn't like things being too random, but he does have an open head in ajna. And so he is able to soak in a lot of information in a short amount of time. But anyway, he's taking this test. The person who's proctored the test, well-meaning person, great teacher, but her exact words were, if you're not sure about a question, just skip it. So he skipped 80% of the test. Because what he translated in his head with his open ajna was, if I'm not 100% certain I know how to answer that question, I have permission from the authority, which is his logic, to skip it. And so when I asked him, hey, buddy, there's like 10 or 12 questions here I know that you know how to do. You've known how to do them since like second grade. Why did you skip them? And he goes, well, I wasn't 100% sure. I was like I was 90% sure I could answer, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I skipped it. And I said, that's not what she meant. She meant if you're not 100% sure, you should try it. And if you try solving the problem and you realize that you're 100% sure you don't know how to solve it, then you can skip it. And he's like, oh, that makes more sense. So I'm giggling because she doesn't know human design and she can't read his mind, and neither can I. I'm just looking at his chart, and he, his eyes, I talk all the time about how you will know when you're getting it right with your child's chart if their eyes light up. If you're asking them questions and their eyes look at you like, oh, wow, you do understand me. And that's exactly what happened during this conversation. He's like, how did you, the look on his face is, how did you know that I wasn't 100% certain? Well, I know because his Ajna Center is open and he's never 100% certain. But when he thinks he's 100% certain, he will stand and die fighting that idea. So, and my oldest daughter also has an open head in Ajna, and we used to get in some of the most terrible arguments because when she would finally put her foot down and say, no, I'm 100% certain that my idea about this is right, there was nothing you could say to convince her otherwise, nothing. And so I often tell my listeners and my clients that I wish I had known more earlier because, I spent the majority of her relationship while she was still at home not understanding her design, not understanding that she was never 100% certain about anything. Now, luckily, Human Design came into my life when she was like a sophomore in high school. And she's a happily married adult now with her own life and her own established stuff going on. And I remember just before she announced that she was going to get married, that she was engaged, she was discussing with me whether or not she should, because she could kind of tell it was coming. They had been talking about it. And I asked her how she felt about it. And she said, I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. And at that point, I understood human design. And I said, oh, honey, I don't think you'll ever be 100% certain about anything. And she said, you know what? You're right. I'm not even 100% sure what I want to eat for lunch. And I said, so let's talk about 80% or 90%. Like, there's always some quirky thing about people that we aren't going to want to live with. But do you feel like 80 or 90 or 95% sure that everything else is good? And she didn't answer, but she thought about it. And then, of course, she accepted they're married now. So apparently she decided that it was 99%. In case her wife's listening, I want you to know she never gave me a percentage. So I just know that she's never 100% sure. Okay, so in parent coaching, just strictly parent coaching without human design, they often talk about children being either a sieve, a sponge, or a funnel when it comes to how they acquire information. So is your child more of a sieve, a sponge, or a funnel? And that's just something I want you to start thinking about, because later this summer, God willing, I will be doing a class about how to support your child in their learning environment, whether you homeschool or they go to public school or they're in private school or have a tutor, whatever. There's a lot we can learn from the Human Design chart about how to support our child in their learning. And this Ajna Center reminded me that that's what was coming up down the road this summer, because if they have an open Ajna, it's important that we teach them processes that are consistent, because they won't have a built-in internal process that they can rely on. It's also important to teach them to ask good questions, like, how important is this piece of information? Are there other pieces of information that are more important? Who's an authority we could ask about this? Different questions that will get them thinking about how to sort information, because with the open Ajna, they are literally sponging in information all the time. So they have to quickly learn, even as small children, to sort information between reliable and unreliable information, or questionable. I mean, some things are not unreliable, they're just questionable. Let's see. So that's my introduction, is to start asking ourselves, is my child a sieve, a sponge, or a funnel? Sieve children sort things. They usually have a defined Ajna and sort things themselves. But sponge kids usually just take it all in, and then you start to process it as they regurgitate it back out or parrot it back out. So, and funnel children, some of it doesn't stick. It just goes in one ear and out the other. They usually have a lot of individual circuitry, and they just have to come to understanding things in their own way. It's pretty interesting. So, okay, and none of the three things are better than the other. We tend to appreciate the sponges because they're always listening to us, and we tend to appreciate the sieves because they seem to find the right answers all the time. So, we'll talk about that more later this summer. Also want to announce that this is the last of our Human Design Bodygraph Centers series. And so I'm going to take a little break and enjoy my summer with the kids before I start podcasting again. But don't worry, I'm not leaving for good. I'll be back, I don't know when. Like I said, I have some ideas about repurposing some of this information on my website so that people can find it a little more easily. But stay tuned. I have big plans for other things maybe this fall. So again, God willing. Okay. Let's go over the gates of the Ajna Center now. So the fear that we experience in the Ajna Center is like a fear of not knowing something, or maybe being misunderstood. So that's a real legitimate fear for kids that have an undefined Ajna Center. So we're going to start at the top left and kind of work our way around the triangle. The first gate is gate 47, the gate of realizing. And so this gate is responsible for trying to make sense or conceptualize and assign meaning to things that have happened in the past. It comes with it a fear of futility. And like I mentioned in previous episodes, the gates that you really want to pay attention to in your own child's chart or in your chart are gates that are what we call hanging. So that means they're defined off of one center, but they don't complete that channel to the other center. So in the example of gate 47, it doesn't have the corresponding gate 64 to match it to make that complete channel. It's very common. There's nothing wrong with hanging gates, but what we find is that without understanding their own energy, they will often be seeking out people and circumstances, especially people that complete that energy channel, because they feel like there's a missing piece to themselves. Although there's nothing missing. We all have all of the chart, just when it's not defined, it's just inconsistent. Some days we have it, some days we don't, and that's okay. So part of the parenting by Human Design is helping our kids to know their own innate energy and to be able to accept and work with that energy instead of spending their life seeking to complete all those hanging gates. Gate 24 is the gate of rationalizing, or the gate of return. And this comes along with a feeling of fear that knowing, that certainty is never going to come. So they have people with a defined gate 24 often have a fear of ignorance. And the gate of return is really cool. It reminds me of like a ruminant, the way a cow or a sheep will chew on something, swallow it, and then bring it back up and chew on it a little more and then swallow it. And each time they're extracting something new, some new nutrients. And so when we do that with information, we often are chewing on a concept or a quote that's inspiring to us. And every time we repeat it out loud or write it down or think about it again, we chew on it in different directions and kind of extract something new from it. So these people with the Gate 24 make really good Bible study partners, just saying. So gate 4 on the top right hand side of the Ajna Center is the gate of formalization. This gate comes with an anxiety about chaos. And so we have talked a little bit about the Kabbalah in the chart. So here's a piece where the Kabbalah comes in, which is there's a propensity for order, and that's pretty strong in, which is called Seder in Hebrew. It's pretty strong in people with a Gate 4 that they like to have order or create order out of chaos. And so they like to have a system or a step-by-step things going on so that they can follow the steps and feel comfortable. Gate 11, so now we're on the bottom part of the triangle that's pointing down towards the throat on the right-hand side. The Gate 11 is the gate of ideas, and this is a hanging gate with the Gate 56, the storyteller. So the gate of ideas carries with it an anxiety that I will never have a new idea of my own, or anxiety about sharing or manifesting that idea. And it can also, this is something else to kind of watch. If I don't have a child with the Gate 11 defined in my home right now, but pay attention, because this one also, like kids with Gate 11 can also be afraid of the dark a lot more than other kids. So that's something to just keep in mind and ask yourself, especially if you're having bedtime struggles. So Gate 43 is the gate of insight. And this one comes with an anxiety that my ideas are just too weird or some sort of fear of rejection. Again, you'll remember from other things that I've shared that the 4323 is the Flint Lockwood of the chart. And so they have like these moments, flashes of insight and understanding and innovation that are often preemptive. It's before the collective is ready to accept it. And so their ideas do tend to get rejected because they're sharing them without an invitation, and it's not producing the results that they want. So, and then the last gate of the Ajna is the Gate 17, which is the gate of opinions. And this gate carries with it an anxiety that my opinions will be challenged, so I just don't share them. The fear that I don't have all the details to back up my opinion. Because guess what? The hanging gate to the throat there is the Gate 62, the gate of details. So if they have this hanging, they're like, I shouldn't share this, even though I think I have an opinion and it might be right. I don't want to share it because I don't have the details, the other side of the gate, the other side of the channel, to back it up, and people will challenge me and I won't be able to answer them. So in a defined Ajna Center, a child with a defined Ajna Center, one of the pitfalls we're helping guide them away from. So again, we're kind of like teaching our kids how to drive their own vehicle and learn to listen to their own inner authority. One of the ditches we're trying to not drive into is if they have a defined Ajna, we don't want them making decisions with their mind, and that because a lot of times kids with a defined Ajna, and I'm one of those kids, is that we will make a decision, our mind will be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's do this, and then they have this plan, and then we don't necessarily follow through with the plan. And that is because the Ajna isn't connected to a motor center, and it doesn't work that way. So in kids with an undefined Ajna, the pitfall is, again, that need to be confident or to hang on to an idea to appear intelligent. So one of the things I do to help all my kids with an undefined Ajna is that I teach them to be master question askers. You can learn a ton of information asking good questions, and not all questions are good, right? But so we learn from an early age in our homeschool what's a good question to ask here, because good questions get us to good answers. Not so good questions like they might just confirm our own bias. So we have to really learn to ask great questions and learn to be good conversationalists so that we can learn from everyone. And then asking, is this worth it? Does this really matter? Is this my idea or someone else's? Is this my plan or someone else's? You know, we can support kiddos. I'm almost running out of time, so I think you can probably tell I'm talking faster. We can support our kiddos with a defined ajna by giving them good things to contemplate, because that little wheel in their head is always turning, and they, like a ruminant, they need something to kind of chew on. So that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful. Shalom.